Watching Kyle's unboxing videos again?
Yeah, he always finds the coolest... No way! A robot dog? Gotta ask where he got it.
Or use your Samsung Galaxy S24 Ultra. Just draw a circle around the dog on your screen, and it shows you where to buy it right in the app.
Whoa, I just learned a new trick. And that for once, I beat Kyle to the next big thing.
Circle it, find it with the new Galaxy S24 Ultra and circle the search with Google. Get yours now at Samsung.com. Internet connection required. Results may vary based on visuals.
Hello and welcome to It's Only a Game podcast. I am Jimmy. I'm joined here by Greg, Deck and Matt, of course, our regular team. How are we doing, gents?
Doing fine, yeah. Rochdale are currently playing Bradford away from home, 0-0. I'll take 0-0. Escape with a point.
Oh, good, mate, yeah. Life is life. It's January. Christmas rush has been and gone. Football is currently what it is. And yeah, can't complain. All good.
Yeah, likewise, cracking on. I'm currently making my way through a cupboard full of Pringles and a few stale celebrations. So yeah, not bad.
Matt and Deck there with quite philosophical words, I'm sure you'll agree, that you can take with you today on the podcast. And we are also joined for his second appearance, am I right in thinking, by Joe from Albion Obsessed. Now, of course, Joe, we're not going to mention the game the other day. Why not? Because you battered us. How are we doing, Joe? How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, all good, mate. Loving life as an Albion fan. It's just been great to see, obviously, De Zerbi come in and do what he's been doing, take Graham Potter's handiwork and run with it. So, yeah, it's been great. And had a bit of a rubbish Christmas, though. I had the flu. It wasn't great. I went to Cholton 3 days after getting the flu. Shouldn't have done because we lost on penalties. Should have buried them within the 90 minutes, but that's just what happens when you underestimate an opponent. But yeah, all good, guys. Good to be on for my second appearance, and already got my eyes on the hat-trick ball. So yeah, invite me for a third time and you'll have to send me a match ball.
Absolutely. We don't have that budget, but I'm sure we can try to send you a balloon or something. Can't afford
it. Could be an animated GIF as part of a tweet.
Yeah, it'll be an e-card or a GIF. Yeah, absolutely.
I'll take anything. I'll take anything.
You know what? I think as Everton fans, we'll take anything as well at the moment. But
and Rochdale fans.
Rochdale fans. Oh, geez, yeah. Well, we'll get on to that a little bit, but all of us. Happy New Year, everyone, by the way. Hope you had a lovely Christmas. Unfortunately, like we say, Joe, a bit poorly. But just to cheer you up, Joe, what are you making? You mentioned about Graham Potter's handiwork. What are you making of that so far? Because as we talk, Chelsea lost 4-0 to City. And I've seen a few tweets from you being very diplomatic about it all. So,
of course.
How's that going for you?
Oh, always ever so diplomatic. I mean, Graham Potter left at the first opportunity that he could for his big money move to a top 6 team. And it's clear to see that money doesn't buy everything. And I wrote a piece for the Daily Mail. And at the end of that piece, I said, you can buy our manager, you can buy our players, you can buy our backroom staff, but you can never buy Brighton & Hove Albion's soul. And that's what we've kept. We've kept Tony Bloom. He's the main part of what makes our football club tick so well. Paul Barber as well has been absolutely fantastic alongside him for the last 11-ish years. And it's just hilarious to see the downfall, to be honest, because, as I say, the arrogance of it, and it was clear to see in our 4-1 win against them what it meant to the players as well. Pascal Gross's celebration was absolutely epic, basically calling him finished. So yeah, it's been a wild ride, but to be honest, mostly focused on seeing what Roberto De Zerbi can do for us, and the fact that he's taken a squad. It was weird for him because he took a squad 4th in the Premier League, and that doesn't happen. It just doesn't happen anywhere. And I was worried that he wasn't going to be able to sort of kick on as much as Graham Potter was doing. all of the while I sit here and slate Graham Potter, he did do very well for us. I can't look away from that fact. But the difference under De Zerbi and our goal output has been absolutely ridiculous. So we're loving life, and long may it continue. And I pray that we finish above Chelsea this season.
At this rate, that's probably going to happen. I think current Chelsea's form, Chelsea's current form, even I should say. But we have got to point out, for all the bad reasons, everything else, the money stuff, Potter does look pretty good in that turtleneck sort of jumper suit look. We call him
on the South Coast Glow Up Graham. So yeah, that's quite fun. But yeah, let him crack on. Nice little skin fade he's got now as well. He can actually afford. Yeah. He can afford a barber. Wow, I didn't realise we were paying him that poorly. Yeah. To be honest,
not Paul Barber, but you can afford a barber.
Not Paul Barber. Yeah,
no,
he's ours.
I think he looks a bit like a Bond villain with that turtleneck, to be honest with you. Which is quite fitting considering the Brighton fans' opinion of him. But
well, he's most definitely a villain at the moment. Yeah, and Kukurea, frizzy-haired snake. Sorry.
Frizzy-haired snake. There's the title of this episode. Frizzy-haired snake. There's an image for you all. Fantastic. Right, well, obviously we do love our football, even if we hate our teams from time to time, unless you're Joe, who's loving life. But, of course, and a more pressing issue, it's January. The Christmas rush or the Christmas boom and the Christmas excitement, if you will, or whatever you view as on Christmas and New Year. It's all over now for another year. Maybe a relief to some, but it's still winter, it's dark, it's a bit bleak out there, and we thought we'd bring in Joe, not just for his excellent football insight, which, I'm sure you'll all agree, and his obviously go and follow Albion Obsessed, they are brilliant. No, he's doing so, but honestly, I do love your
you're writing for the Daily Mail. That tops anything we're ever going to do on this podcast.
Yeah.
I got a lot of shit for doing something for the Daily Mail, but I was like, I'm doing it for me. Like, it's only the once that I've done it, and I was just like, if they're going to give me the platform, I'm going to use it. So, yeah, that's why I did it.
That's absolutely fair enough, and obviously go and search for that article in Daily Mail if you wish as well. Anyone that listens, it is a very good read. I've read it myself personally. I can't read it impersonally. Anyway, but obviously we're here to discuss mental health, a much more bigger issue than football. Some may argue not. And Joe, you've had some involvement certainly before Christmas. I noticed you put some pictures up of a football match that happened down your way. That was linked in with mental health and Mental Health United. I mean, would you like to just describe more about how that came about and just your involvement with that side of things, please, if that's okay with you?
Yeah, it's been a crazy journey, so I'll try and I'll put it in chronological order as much as I can. So in the third lockdown, however many lockdowns we had, it was the last lockdown of the lot. We were coming towards the end of it, when they were like staggering opening. So April you can meet up with 6 people, so on and so forth. And I was watching lockdown football, no fans in the stadium, blah 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 blah. And honestly, it came from me looking at the Premier League football and saying, I really like that football, I'm going to buy it because I want to display it. So I ordered it, it came, I pumped it up, and I was like, I really want to kick football again, like so badly. I hadn't played football for 10 years maybe properly. So I thought, do you know what, I'm going to get some friends together and I'm going to say, look, let's do a weekly meet up down the park, we'll kick the ball around, we'll buy some little mini goals and we'll just have some fun. And some other guys were doing the same thing, so Mental Health United. So we're Lancing Warriors, and Mental Health United, who we've joined forces with, were doing the same thing. And they started with 3 or 4 people just kicking the ball around in a 3G pitch cage. And we sort of ran alongside each other, checking in with how each other were getting on. And slowly, people were saying, I'd like to come along and have a kick around. And it just grew and grew and grew to this point where we thought, we've got something big here. We can get a lot of people that were exactly like-minded like us, haven't played football for X amount of years or X amount of months, and they can come along and they can play football with absolutely no judgment. And that's what I always found tough to get back into football was if you found a Sunday League team or if you found a local team that you wouldn't get in because you were deemed not good enough. And that's fair enough. They play competitively, whatever. But there was nothing that I could find like what we were doing. And I felt it very important to fill that gap so we could say to people who felt overweight or who felt inactive, come along. It doesn't matter how good you are, doesn't matter how fit you are, you can play for as long as you like or as little as you like. Just come along and kick a football. And it's grown into what we are now, which we'll obviously get into if you guys have got any questions about that. But that's how the journey started, I guess.
That honestly sounds absolutely brilliant, and personally, I think it sounds perfect. Really, the way that I love, because you don't see this very often, that you're in open ability, access for all, absolutely no discrimination. And I get what you're saying with Sunday League team. Our team that I coach at, the little ones, that we have a Sunday League side in the local Sunday League, and I think, should I ever go down and try and play for them, the men's side? And I think, well, probably the lads are all like 18, 19, 20, 21 that play for them. I'm like 32. I'm 5'2", 32. I'm gonna get destroyed not very quick. I probably couldn't last 90 minutes playing football, because you get the turn in the cap. Probably pulled me quad kick in the ball. Last time I played a game of football, admittedly, me personally, was in China, and I kicked the ball, pulled me quad, and was like in agony for 2 days. So I mean, utterly hopeless footballer. Like, talk about it, but
solid centre half in my book.
You solid centre half. You have more wristbands and clearance.
All the attributes for a centre half. You're slow. You're small. Everything a centre half needs to be. If Martinez can do it for United, you can do it for Sunday League football.
Well, we'll see. I'll be the big man up top with the.
I will point out I'm his brother. I'm allowed to have a go at him for his height. No one else.
I think anyone's allowed. I'm not arse, mate. Anyone's allowed. But yeah, I'll be the Birkenhead League Akron Fenway. Anyway, no, but I think it's amazing that you've it's just so inclusive, and I think that's a fantastic thing whereby anyone can just partake. And I don't know, but I don't know if lads, if you want to jump in, if you know of any other teams around your areas that do that same sort of thing. I think that's absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, not necessarily about teams that kind of do that around the Wirral or around Merseyside, but some of obviously my background academically sported at a sporting degree before I went into teaching. And my kind of interest when I was doing that was very much on the inclusivity and the participation side of sport. So some people went down the elite route and looking at
performance and sponsorship and things like that. Some people went down the PE and school sport route, which obviously eventually I did. But at the time there was a lot of research about the positives or the kind of things that there were to gain from having events such as that. Obviously lockdown was not something that was on the cards back in 2012, but loads of research saying how positive it was, but very little actually being done about it. All of these kind of elite clubs with this kind of infinite amount of money, and they'd run the occasional football and school for kids, or a little group session for OAPs to come along and play walking football, but actually in proportion to what they were putting out for the elite side of things or the academy side of things, and not just football really. You look at the number of opportunities that are actually out there for exactly what you said, Joe, like a non-judgmental sporting facility or sporting events for people to come and join in with. Obviously the number is on the rise, and that's probably one of the only positives to come out of lockdown really was, people kind of tried different things, and I think it's definitely a little bit of a legacy for people to tap into, and obviously what you're continuing to do is fantastic, but it is very, very important that people feel that they can, if they want to, go and do something. I mean, I've been
teetering with the idea of trying to go and get back in, exactly as you were saying, to a little bit of 5-a-side or 7-a-side. I used to play quite regularly, but the last time I played was at Prenton Park on the pitch at the end of the season, and we got beat 14-1, and even that was a dubious penalty. I think I came on and off 4 times as a sub and had more energy gels than I probably should have done, not to go into too much detail, but yeah, no, it's fantastic.
Rub downs, yeah, Deck.
Yeah, on the pitch actually, yeah.
I thought, Deck, it's really interesting what you mentioned about there's a lot for academies and there's a lot for like OAPs and playing walking football, and the crazy stat in this country is that it's probably our age group that are the highest suicide rate, and have the most mental health problems, and there was, there's nothing for them, so it's, from what I've seen, is exactly our age group. I mean, I have my dad come along, he plays, there's a couple of older guys that do come along and play, but it's a majority probably from about 20 to 40, that sort of age range. So yeah, we found it really important that was basically it's open to everyone. Anyone can come play. Women can come and play, like literally anyone. But it's really important to have that for us as well.
And I think it's vitally important when we look at the demographic, not to go too sort of morbid, obviously, but when you talk about, depression and suicide rates, there's certainly the rates in men, certainly between the age of 20 to 40, that it's the unspoken. It's getting more and more spoken about. You've got things like Andy's Man Club out there. You've got lots of different things now out there, more so than there were even just before lockdown, which I think did accelerate the need for more schemes to be put in place, certainly for men of a certain generation. But yeah, it was sort of the unspoken issue that men of our sort of generation, we were sort of in between being old enough to take part in things like walking football, or being, the older gentleman where they can, they were from an era where it was very much you don't talk about your feelings. And then obviously the younger generations, Dak and I, well, we all know, certainly with Dak and I, having worked in education, will know that we always encourage the children to be very, sometimes a little bit too vocal in some cases, but to be very open genuinely about what they're feeling and what they're, and to be able to express themselves, and not bottle it up. And we as a generation, I think, have been kind of caught in between that kind of, do we open up or not? And it's a struggle in itself to, do I open up about this? Do I not? I know I should talk about this, but I don't know if I'll be judged by it. And certainly, you don't want to generalise, but certainly in guys, I think it's seen as far less manly still to open up about it. It's like, oh, let's go to football, or go and do whatever, go for a beer and whatever, and just not talk about it. Let's have a laugh. You've got to be, putting up drywall and eating steak all the time. And it's like, well, actually, sometimes, we're all human, and there's got to be an outlet, whether it's a physical outlet, an emotional outlet, whatever it may be, because I've personally found, you're not able to function physically or emotionally if your brain's not working right. So I think it's massively important that there is that outlet with Lancing Warriors and various other, football teams around, that there is that chance to really express themselves and just be free to, and it's making friends as well. It's a social connection as much as a physical one. So it works in so many different ways, which I think is brilliant.
Yeah, I've met so many amazing people through this, and we've been doing it for coming up to, so this year it'll be 2 years, in May, June, I think. So yeah, over these 2 years I've met so many good people, and you mentioned that we had that football match early December, so that was Lancing Warriors play. So it was an intra-club friendly, was what we called it. So Lancing Warriors, who play on a Sunday, were playing against Mental Health United, who do the Tuesday and Thursday sessions, and a surreal moment for me was to look at my team, 18 of us. There was a squad of 18. And to know that we started on a little patch of grass with 4 people, not really knowing what it was going to be, and now we're playing against Mental Health United on a 4G pitch in Lancing, raising almost £900 for charity. was a surreal moment for me, because it amplified what you can do when people come together, and when people really do believe in a cause, and to look at 18 people playing for my team, 18 people that are unbelievably good friends to me as well, was just unbelievably special. So I'm forever thankful to them for being a part of my life, and to be dragging me through a really rewarding but really tough moment in my life, because in 2021 I became a dad to Alana, and she's absolutely amazing. But as a parent, as a new parent especially, you sort of lose a little bit of your identity, and to have Lancing Warriors pulls me out, pulls Joe to the forefront, and I can be Joe. I don't have to be dad for an hour every Sunday. And yeah, they've been incredible.
Yeah, I think it's important to have that separation where you become you again for a little time, or as little time as you need either way. But it's amazing hearing you talk about it. It's something that I feel, again, like all of us, the older I've got, the more I avoid things like Sunday League football, and the more I avoid things, because it comes with a competitive nature, which if that's your thing, great. You know, I'm not going to tell you not to do that, but I'm not interested in having a fight on a field on a Sunday morning. I want to go and play football for fun. I want to go and play it because I grew up playing it as a thing that was just enjoyable to do. And it's great to see that this kind of thing is about there, and that there should be more out there, I hope. And on Jimmy's point, yeah, it's, you know, we are in that age group of people where I still struggle to talk about things, you know, to open up, because I do feel like I should be in that sort of keep calm and carry on mentality that a lot of people, a lot of adults who helped me grow up had in their mentality. So yeah, it's a great thing to see, and it's a good thing to see that people collaborating together, all into sort of one common goal of, yeah, this is good for everyone. Come in, enjoy it. There's no judgment. It's just a game of football. Come and enjoy it. I think that's great. I really applaud you for it.
It's crazy that you say that they grow up with the keep calm, carry on mentality, but I'm sure he won't mind me saying this if he does listen to this podcast, but our captain, Scott, was at the end of the game extremely emotional, and probably the only one in our squad that shed a tear as to what we have had achieved as a group of men, because so often, like Jimmy, I notice you saying it, I don't want to generalise, but sometimes we can sit here and say, no, I am proud to be a man that can sit here and say I'm struggling, and that's completely okay. And it was a really poignant moment for me to see that emotion come from somebody that is of that generation, because it makes you think, no matter what generation you've been brought up on, those struggles are always there in the background. So yeah, I was so proud of him that he could be that vulnerable in that moment with me on the centre circle once that final whistle had gone. We lost 7-1, and we didn't care. We couldn't care less. We had won because we'd turned up and played, and that was the most important thing for me, to see those guys smile at the end of that.
Yeah, the football is very much the vehicle, isn't it? As you say, it doesn't matter whether you let them beat 7-1 or winning 7-1 every week. It's the community aspect, and it's all about. And I suppose it's easier said than done, but it's about surrounding yourself with those people that you feel you can be vulnerable with. I personally, likewise to what I think we've all said tonight, and again it goes to that stereotypical or man thing, and men don't cry, men don't do this, and so on. And I think, as Jimmy alluded to a little bit earlier on, working with children, you're quite often that kind of solid, not necessarily role model, but that kind of invincible figure to them that, no matter what's going on, you're going to be there for them, and that's great. Similarly, Joe, as you will be as a parent. And I think sometimes it's about taking that little step back and kind of checking in on yourself as well. And I think, again, going back to COVID kind of highlighted a lot of people's vulnerabilities or insecurities. but in a way, now that people are aware of them, I think there's a positive to come from it. But again, it's all about taking that little step back. And I think the older I've become, I mean, I'm not, archaic, but as a kind of 18, 19-year-old, things would just bounce off and you wouldn't really let anything soak in and affect you. And I think as the years are starting to tick on a little bit and you kind of think, right, you know what, that hurt me a little bit, or that's got to me a little bit. And you kind of find coping mechanisms, which is fantastic, but sometimes you can't keep that in, and it's not good to, you spend your whole life finding ways to keep things in, but actually in the long run that makes things 10 times worse. And exactly what you were saying, Joe, about finding someone that you can feel that little bit vulnerable with, or being able to let yourself go, that's the end goal for me. It's about finding that person, but it's also about being that person. And I think, without going too deep, I think if everyone gives a little bit and takes a little bit, it just makes things so much easier for people to open up and feel that they can. Matt, did you have your hand up then, or was that your curtain? Sorry, I've just ended a really valid point with was that a hand up?
That wasn't the curtain, Declan. It wasn't my hand up either, it's fine. Yes, Mr. Evans.
Yes, no, I've completely lost my trail of thought, but yeah, basically it's all about, yeah, it was a little bit. It's all about surrounding yourself with good people, isn't it? And I think, as you've said there, Joe, obviously, a lot of the people within the football setup that you've got there are people that you've known from different walks of life and so on. But it's also having that little bit of bravery to step out and put yourself into those situations and those scenarios whereby you go and you meet people, and before you know it, you're an integral part of that group. And again, it goes back to that kind of life experience, doesn't it? If you think, not to go kind of too morbid, but if you look at all the statistics with young men, and we all know what's very well publicised as to what happens, and it's kind of 17, 18, 19-year-olds, then you kind of look at men in our age bracket, and yes, it does happen, but there seems to be a little bit of a drop-off. And is it, kind of what I was saying, where you get yourself involved in a couple of different groups, and you find hobbies that aren't just going to the pub every Friday night and so on, and you start surrounding yourself with those people. And maybe it is when people just start to open up that little bit more that the biggest troubles in the world can be halved, can't they, as soon as you share them. That's probably enough from me. I'm probably getting a little bit soppy now, so I'm gonna shut up.
Yeah, I mean, just to quickly add on to the end there, the people that I'm, not to say I'm not proud of some of them, I'm proud of most of them, or all of them, is the people I'm most proud of are the people that don't know us and turn up and just play, and become part of something that's so integral to, as you say, keeping that group going and building our community. Because I remember how I was going to, because when I lived in Hastings, I went to a session called Man versus Fat Football. And when I turned up to that, I felt so isolated, so alone, so like, I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know anyone, and no one was talking to me, no one was introducing themselves, and then I left. So when I set this thing up, I wanted to be everything that I had experienced badly, flipped, and anyone that walks through the Lancing Warriors door, they are greeted with me saying, "Hello, I'm Joe, this is this person, this is that person, welcome to the group, you're just as much as one of us now, because you've stepped foot on this pitch." And that sense of belonging, that's what I want to give to people, is that sense of belonging. Because if someone turns up and they feel like they can't get on there, they're just going to turn away, and they're going to feel absolutely awful for God knows how long, however long it takes them to process it mentally. So it's very important for us to put that forwards in the right way, and to greet people in the right way.
It's interesting in terms of how we communicate. Everybody can be struggling sometimes. For instance, some of my friends, like from back home, because I've moved town about half an hour from where I used to live, we just text each other because we can't get to each other sometimes. And obviously that would have happened in lockdown. Zoom obviously became a thing, and I think it's basically how this podcast came to be. Actually, we started it in lockdown as a source of communication tool, in just trying to catch up with each other because of the circumstances of not being able to see anybody. Obviously, we all had phones, obviously, things like that. But it's interesting how communicating on different levels can just help, because some people might not be really confident in speaking about it. So it can be in the form of a text. A few of my friends are like that. The more they can describe how they're feeling through a text instead. But yeah, it just came to me how this podcast sort of came to be, really, from the experience of lockdown, really. It was myself, Jimmy and Matt to begin with, and then Dec came along as well. But also, something just came to mind as well. When we're texting in the group chat, I noticed like Dec jumps in with how are we all feeling and things like that. Don't you, Dec? I think that's something that people reach out in different ways, whether they realise it or not. But I think that's what Dec's also doing there as well.
Yeah, I think some people get a bit sick of the sight of me. To be fair, I'll come into work of a morning at 7:30, and it'll take me till 8 o'clock to get to my classroom, because I hop in, make sure people are all right, and in a kind of roundabout way, I think that's probably my way of dealing with things and stuff as well. People are asked back and so on, and it's just that give and take, isn't it? It's about finding a couple of minutes in the day. It doesn't take a long time, and as you're saying there, Greg, a message, someone could send that message and someone replies. You don't have to get back to them straight away, but they know that you're looking out for them and thinking and so on. So I think as much as bad press technology gets and social media and so on, it's a massive empowerment. The amount of time that people spend on it, as we've said a number of times on here, there's so much that can come from it. I mean, I'm sure when this episode goes live, I'd be quite happy to put my Twitter handle and I'm sure everyone else, our own, the podcast Twitter handle, and likewise Joe's Albion Obsessed as well, but also our own. And if there is anyone out there, a text, a phone call, or whatever, that we're all very, I certainly am. I've probably spoken on everyone's behalf there. I won't be giving people's addresses out, but people are here, and it's not kind of empty promises or empty thoughts when people say that. If people do need someone to talk to, there are people there, whether they're people that you know or people, and sometimes it's easier if it's someone that you don't know. They're non-judgmental. They don't know anything that's going on, and they're just there to listen. And sometimes that's all that people need as well. So I'm quite happy to do that. I'm sure everyone else is as well. I've completely derailed that and gone off again on another tangent, haven't I, Greg?
I think social media is what. So yeah, it's toxic. It's horrible. I've experienced a lot over the last year and a half, obviously doing a Brighton Hove Albion podcast and being in the media's focal point of Brighton Hove Albion at times when I've been contacted by TalkSport, or whether that be Daily Mail or BBC 5 Live, and you do get some horrible comments of just mindless trolls that come to attack you. But I do also urge people, what I've done over the last week or so, because I've been having a bit of a crap time with it, is I've privatised a lot of my personal stuff. I've privatised my Twitter because I was finding that people with privatised accounts were quoting my tweets and sharing it amongst whoever, and I couldn't see what they were saying, and that was playing on my mind the most, because I didn't know what they were saying about me. And that's the scary thing. The moment you put something on social media, it's out there for anyone to grab it. So it's amazing that we're being this vulnerable and this open in hope that it helps one other person, but it's also very scary to know that a comment could come at you and just ruin your day or ruin your week. But that's the role that social media has to play, and I really feel like it can do more to block these trolls. We've spoken about it on Albion Obsessed before, of whether that be face recognition or ID recognition. I don't get how these people get away with, right, I'm gonna make a account and I'm going to be racist towards this person, or I'm going to be homophobic towards that person, and they can just make multiple accounts again and again and again and again. Whether they get reported and blocked, they can make another one. There has to be some accountability, I don't know whether it's because social media spans so many countries, so there's so many different laws that you have to put into play. But yeah, I just feel like they could do more, whether that be a snap of a photo or IP recognition. There has to be more done.
Yeah, unfortunately, social media, and in particular football Twitter, is something of a cesspit at times. It can do a lot of good. There can be connections like ourselves. There can be connections made. There's people we've met through this podcast, including yourself, Joe. Fantastic people. We all here use social media for good. We know that within the circles we operate in. And you can put out a tweet about your mental health, about anything. You could get 500 positive responses, but the human nature is to focus on the one negative one, and that will, unfortunately, it takes a lot of resilience and a lot of time to learn how to shrug off one little nasty troll's comments, and sometimes you never truly do, because it can be hurtful, the idea. You feel vulnerable then for letting somebody that you have no idea who they are into your life and into your mind almost, and then you think, right, I'm gonna shut up shop. I don't want any nameless, faceless little troll, with multiple accounts sort of taking jibes at me and getting to me personally. But so there is a lot social media needs to answer for, and I agree there needs to be some sort of verification process that goes on. Not just buying a blue tick off Elon Musk, because that's not going to work. But it's hard to know where to begin, because obviously, like you say, different countries have different regulations. Obviously, different countries have different access to social media. You go certain countries and Twitter or wherever's banned. So I mean, that then you have got to use a VPN or what have you, and that complicates things more. So it's hard to know where that really can be operated. But to say it, to flip it as well, social media can be a tool for a lot of good, as can sport. Of course, but it's unfortunate really that we live in a world where, yes, everyone's got an opinion. Not everyone has to listen to your opinion, and there are people who do have the entitlement of thinking that because I have an opinion, everyone has to listen to my opinion, and I'm also going to just be nasty to those who I don't agree with, because that's pathetic, especially when it's over a football team or something as completely trivial. I'm going to say something racist or homophobic because they support a different team to me. That's just absolutely pathetic, and that really does anger me when you see stuff like that, as I'm sure you've seen more than I have, Joe.
Yeah, I know I'm not Joe. I'm Declan. Just going on from what you've said there, Jimmy, you kind of triggered something in my head there, that obviously the number of football matches that I've been to, and that's the one thing that really gets to me. And I have done it in the past, and you'll know, having sat by me at the football match, I'm very vocal. And for me, as I was saying earlier on, it's about finding that thing, you kind of 90 minutes of losing yourself and, forgetting about everything else that's going on professionally, personally, and just going and enjoying something. And for me, that is going to the match and singing and dancing and shouting and bawling and whatever. But there's that line, and I've had it so many times, not necessarily just with Tranmere fans, not at all, not to give them a bad name. In fact, quite often with other fans as well, where you'll hear something or someone will allude to something and you'll challenge them. And when you challenge them, their initial reaction is to turn around and go, well, I've had I won't say the exact words, but I've had a crap week. And you're thinking that's all well and good, but then you saying that to someone else or a group of people, all you're doing is passing that forward. So no one's saying that you can't go and sing about your hometown being fantastic or visiting somewhere else and it being a shithole or this, that and the other. We all do that, and there's nothing personally meant by that. That is football culture. But going and targeting individuals and this, that and the other, there's a line that, hopefully less and less people are stepping over. But when they do, it really, really does press my buttons when they just turn around and blame it on their own issues or their own insecurities, or turn around and go, well, I've had a hard week in work, or I've paid me money, I'll say what I want. No, you can't, because you can't. Football is a microcosm of society, isn't it? And if you've had a bad week, you go to the pub and you have, a few pints, and then you leave the pub and you start knocking on people's doors and calling them for all sorts of people walking down the street, you get locked up. So people just thinking that they can turn around and do that, and then going back to social media and, you know, having a go at players or doing it, you know, in the stadiums or against their own fans. It just can't happen. Jimmy?
No, sorry, just to take on your point, really, is obviously the stadium and the games are, you know, the players, the management, the staff, it's their place of work at the end of the day. And you have to turn it around on yourself and think, how would you feel if somebody came into your workplace and basically started verbally abusing you in a really personal manner, picking on something that you might have an insecurity about, or picking on something that you weren't even aware of, and really just like rip it into you on a really like personal level, and then them saying, well, I can say what I want. It's like, well, it's my place of work. You have no right to come to my place of work and verbally abuse me, regardless of your opinions on the job you think I'm doing. And the same applies, of course, for social media, because social media is the place of work for journalists, for various other people as well, influencers and what have you, whatever you make of them. You know, they have a job, and it comes back to the age-old cliche, if you haven't got anything nice to say. And I know it's a bit cringe, but no one makes you say something just because you don't like something. Doesn't mean you have to be horrible about it. And I agree. There's people that come out with stuff for football, and it still goes on. And it's I can't believe in 2023, well 2022, I last went to a game like that. You still get comments, and you go, that's just not on. That's just, have you not been listening for the last 20, 30 years of awareness we've tried to raise? It is appalling, no matter how bad the team's playing, no matter how bad, you know, yeah, you've had a rubbish week at work or a rubbish week with whatever, but it's an outlet for your emotions, but there's a fine line between banter and just plain abuse, and some people just don't get that, sadly, still.
I think it's a famous quote, wasn't it? It was Bill Shankly said that football's what was it about life and death? I've forgotten what the actual quote is.
Football's not just a matter of life and death. It's much more important than that.
Which I do think he didn't mean it in the way that people take it sometimes. I think he meant that bit tongue in cheek to a certain extent. But I agree with the point. I think there's also an element where we forget that the players on the pitch are human. I fall foul of that. I'd be the first to admit that I shouted at a player that, you know, they're crap or whatever else. And it's good to see footballers coming out. I think Marcus Rashford recently came out and spoke about this. I don't know if the Everton players have in Freestone, and it's a lot more accepted, I think, or starting to be more accepted, that players go through tough times, and you can be the best player in the world. You could be, you know, up there with the best technical player. If your mind isn't in the right place, you're not going to perform to the level you want to do, and we forget that. You know, as an Everton fan, me and Jimmy both agreed that team at the moment is pissing me off, but the team is. Outside of the football team, they can do what they like. I don't care what they do outside of it, as long as when they come onto the pitch, they give everything as part of that club. But whatever struggles they've got on outside of it, I would never think of picking them up on that. And a lot of people do. A lot of people, like you say, pick on something personal, pick on an appearance, pick on anything either way, because they get so wound up or get so ingrained in that thing of, you know, football is that idea is more than life and death. And that's a really dangerous game to play if you're not careful. And I think there needs to be that separation of, yes, football is enjoyment, but there's a line where that's not on. And it's good to hear about people calling people out when they do cross that line.
Sorry, Matt, just on that, I know you mentioned about, obviously, certain Everton players and stuff, in particular, and what they do outside of the game. I think I know who you're referring to. I'm not going to name names, obviously. But obviously, as well, we shouldn't forget that I do think there are certainly, not to make this about us, but there are players in the squad at the moment that are struggling mentally with the pressure of playing for the club.
Absolutely, you can tell.
And with balancing their life. And there's one player in particular, obviously, at the moment. Obviously, I won't name names. I think you can all work out who it is, who I do think is suffering under a cloud of real, you know, really is struggling mentally. And I think they take a lot of flack off the pitch for the things they do as well and post on social media, which is wrong if they want to live their life the way they do and do the things they do outside the game, as long as they, you know, they keep themselves, you know, in shape and perform as best they can and give everything. You know, not all of us will give ourselves 100% at work each single day, because
I never do.
If you physically gave 100% and were absolute top form, I mean, Matt, yeah, you never do. I've seen you work. Jesus Christ, man, you've got the cricket on half the time. Sorry, no, he hasn't. But
half the time.
Okay, 3/4.
More than half.
Okay, at least you admit it. But yeah, if we were to be on tip-top form every single day at work and be the most productive person ever, we wouldn't do anything else. We'd be shattered by the time we finish work, doing an 8-hour, 10-hour shift, whatever. In Dak's case, 25-hour shift, because it never ends. This is his time off compared to,
I'm pushing for a sponsorship with Red Bull and Monster. I'm nearly there. I've pretty much got shares in the companies now.
You'd be pushing something if you're drinking Red Bull and Monster, mate. Jesus Christ.
Get onto Prime, Dick. Get
very
onto Prime,
little pushing.
Millions.
Oh,
it's trying to get older
Get
stuff.
Prime.
Yeah.
Other energy drinks and other soft drinks and water is also available to drink. Just
Dr. Pepper?
Yeah. As Cristiano Ronaldo once said, agua, which is Portuguese for water, at that press conference when he got that Coca-Cola bottle out of the way. Anyway, we're off on a tangent. So yeah, I do think as well we have to factor in that players mentally off the pitch will not always be right to perform on it, which obviously is then compounded if they're getting abuse from the stands and social media.
Sports Social Podcast Network.